In the desert sands of Giza, where the golden horizon blurs the line between earth and sky, one monument has captured human imagination for millennia, the Great Sphinx. With the body of a lion and the face of a ruler, it has guarded the plateau like an eternal sentinel. Egyptologists tell us that the Sphinx is a relic of the Old Kingdom, built during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BCE. According to this mainstream account, it was meant to symbolize royal power and divine guardianship, a fusion of human intelligence and animal strength carved into limestone bedrock. Yet from the earliest travelers who stood before its gaze, questions arose. Why does it appear older than the pyramids it guards? Why does it seem weathered beyond its supposed age? The Sphinx is not simply a monument, it is a riddle in stone, and like a riddle, it seems designed to provoke curiosity, daring each generation to uncover what lies beneath its gaze and perhaps beneath its paws. To some, it is simply a tomb guardian. To others, it is a whisper of a deeper history waiting to be revealed. Mainstream archaeology assures us that the Sphinx fits neatly within the story of ancient Egypt's grandeur. Pharaoh Khafre, son of Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid, is often credited with its construction. Evidence includes fragments of statues resembling Khafre and the alignment of the Sphinx with his pyramid complex. The design would have been both political and spiritual, an unmistakable marker of divine kingship. Over time, shifting sands buried much of the monument, and only its head remained visible. Ancient records from the New Kingdom period tell us that Pharaoh Thutmose IV dreamed of the Sphinx speaking to him, promising power if he cleared away the sand. From then on, Egyptian rulers sought its favour, restoring and venerating it. Yet despite its prominent role in Egypt's culture, uncertainties linger. No hieroglyphic inscription from Khafre's reign directly attributes the Sphinx to him. The absence of clear construction records leaves room for debate. Even mainstream experts admit the Sphinx holds mysteries that archaeology has not fully solved. This tension between certainty and silence opens the door to speculation, fuel for those who wonder whether official history is incomplete, or perhaps intentionally simplified. Some researchers, working outside conventional Egyptology, argue that the Sphinx is far older than Khafre's reign. They point to geological evidence, patterns of erosion that resemble water damage rather than mere desert winds. If accurate, this would suggest the monument was carved thousands of years earlier, during a time when Egypt's climate was wetter, possibly before 7000 BCE. Such a timeline would rewrite history, predating dynastic Egypt by millennia. Alternative theorists propose that a forgotten civilization, lost to memory, left the Sphinx as a marker of their presence. Others connect it to myths of Atlantis, suggesting that survivors of a cataclysm preserved their knowledge in monuments across the globe. These ideas are controversial and often dismissed by mainstream scholars as speculative or lacking sufficient evidence. Yet the persistence of these claims, echoed in books, documentaries and debates, reflects a deep human desire to believe that ancient wisdom, perhaps forbidden knowledge, was deliberately hidden beneath the sands. Whether it is science or imagination, these challenges to orthodoxy ensure that the Sphinx remains more than stone. It becomes a mirror, reflecting our hunger to uncover what history has concealed. The Great Sphinx, then, is more than a silent guardian. It is an icon of mystery. Its sheer presence forces us to ask questions. Who carved it, and why? Was it truly the work of a single pharaoh, or a remnant of a civilization we barely understand? Beneath its paws, rumours of hidden chambers persist, vaults that could contain scrolls, artifacts, or records that would rewrite human history. Mainstream archaeology insists that no such chambers have been proven to exist. Yet, geophysical surveys hint at anomalies in the bedrock. The possibility of hidden spaces lingers, like a secret waiting to surface. Even today, access to full-scale excavations is tightly controlled, fueling suspicion that something is being concealed. For the ordinary traveller who stands before the Sphinx, the questions feel almost timeless. Its worn face, eroded body, and enigmatic gaze suggest resilience, but also secrecy. Is the Sphinx a monument of kings, or a time capsule of forgotten worlds? The truth may never be fully revealed, but the mystery itself has become its legacy. And so we begin our journey, into the sands, the stone, and the silence that surrounds this guardian of forbidden knowledge. The mainstream story of the Sphinx begins in Egypt's Old Kingdom, around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. Archaeologists believe the monument was carved directly from the limestone bedrock to complement his pyramid complex on the Giza Plateau. The alignment of the Sphinx with Khafre's pyramid and the valley temple nearby suggests a carefully designed religious and political statement. The body of a lion symbolized strength and dominance, while the human head represented divine kingship. In this view, the Sphinx was both guardian and proclamation, a bold reminder of Khafre's power in life and his eternal role in the afterlife. The craftsmanship would have required hundreds of workers, chiseling with copper tools, hauling blocks for restoration, and smoothing the colossal shape into form. To Egyptologists, the Sphinx is a logical extension of the Pyramid Age, a monument born of faith, power, and a centralized state capable of organizing labor on a grand scale. Its very presence underscores the genius of dynastic Egypt, where engineering, religion, and authority fused into structures that continue to defy time. This vision is rooted in evidence found on the plateau, from statue fragments to architectural alignment, tying the Sphinx directly to Khafre's era. Despite these strong associations, doubts linger about the precise origins of the Sphinx. Unlike the pyramids, which are filled with inscriptions and records of their builders, the Sphinx has no definitive text linking it to Khafre. In fact, no ancient inscription explicitly mentions who ordered its construction. Instead, much of the attribution is based on context. Statues of Khafre bear a resemblance to the Sphinx's face, and the layout of the monuments around the plateau appears unified. Mainstream scholars argue that this circumstantial evidence is compelling, but critics remain unsatisfied. The absence of records fuels ongoing debate, leaving the door open for alternative interpretations. Some Egyptologists even admit that the Sphinx could predate Khafre, though they maintain it must still fit within the timeline of dynastic Egypt. This uncertainty is part of what makes the Sphinx so enigmatic. For the casual observer, it seems strange that such an iconic monument could stand without a clear origin story. In this gap between certainty and silence, alternative theories thrive, suggesting that the Sphinx might belong to a history far older than the pyramids it guards. Some researchers, challenging the mainstream timeline, suggest the Sphinx predates Khafre by thousands of years. Geological studies by independent investigators such as John Anthony West and Robert Schoch have argued that the Sphinx's weathering patterns indicate prolonged water erosion, not mere wind and sand. If correct, this would place the carving of the monument during a wetter climate in Egypt, possibly between 7000 and 9000 BCE, an era long before dynastic Egypt arose. Such claims imply that an unknown civilization with advanced skills may have existed on the Nile before the pharaohs. These researchers argue that Khafre may have restored or repurposed an already ancient monument rather than commissioning it outright. While this theory excites popular imagination, it remains controversial. Most Egyptologists reject it, claiming that the erosion can be explained by centuries of rainfall and wind exposure during Egypt's known history. Still, the notion of a monument older than recorded Egyptian civilization continues to spark interest, precisely because it challenges established timelines. If the Sphinx is truly older than Khafre, then it may be a surviving witness of a forgotten epoch in human history, an unsettling possibility that mainstream archaeology resists but cannot entirely disprove. Beyond geological debates, alternative thinkers weave the Sphinx into global narratives of lost civilizations. Some connect it to Plato's account of Atlantis, imagining that survivors of a great flood carried their knowledge to Egypt and left the Sphinx as a testament to their wisdom. Others speculate that it was a celestial marker, aligned with stars or equinoxes, suggesting that its builders possessed advanced astronomical knowledge. A few go further, proposing connections to ancient astronaut theories, interpreting the Sphinx as evidence of otherworldly intervention in human history. Mainstream scholars dismiss these ideas as imaginative but unfounded, pointing out the lack of hard evidence, yet their persistence in popular culture speaks to a deep human desire for mystery. The Sphinx, with its eroded face and silent presence, invites these stories because it offers no definitive answers. Whether guardian of a king's tomb or relic of a forgotten people, the Sphinx straddles the line between history and myth. This tension, between evidence and imagination, keeps the debate alive. The truth, whatever it may be, remains partially buried beneath the sands, waiting for future discoveries to either confirm the accepted story or unravel it entirely. Mainstream archaeology holds that the Sphinx's weathering is consistent with wind and sand erosion over thousands of years. Egyptologists argue that the monument, carved from limestone bedrock, has endured centuries of desert storms, abrasive winds, and cycles of heat and cold. These forces, they explain, account for the worn body and missing nose, as well as the softened details that contrast with sharper carvings elsewhere on the plateau. Restorations carried out during various dynasties, such as Thutmose Thortal efforts in the New Kingdom, also altered the surface, further confusing the picture. In this view, the Sphinx's damage is not evidence of extraordinary antiquity, but rather the natural outcome of exposure in one of the world's harshest environments. Specialists point to similar weathering on other Old Kingdom structures, noting that limestone is especially vulnerable to erosion. The result is a monument whose scars reflect both its age and its endurance, surviving despite relentless desert conditions. This interpretation reassures us that the Sphinx fits within the broader story of dynastic Egypt, a masterpiece of stone that has faced the same natural forces that continue to shape the landscape of the Giza Plateau. Yet some researchers see a very different story written in the stone. In the 1990s, geologist Robert Schoch and author John Anthony West argued that the Sphinx shows evidence of water erosion, not just wind. They observed vertical channels and rounded edges on the monument's body that resemble patterns formed by heavy rainfall rather than desert storms. If true, this would place the Sphinx's construction in a much earlier period, possibly before 7000 BCE, when Egypt's climate was wetter. Such a date would radically challenge mainstream chronology, suggesting that advanced builders existed long before the rise of pharaonic culture. Schoch's conclusions ignited controversy. Egyptologists quickly rejected the claim, arguing that the erosion patterns could result from wind and occasional flash floods during dynastic times. Nonetheless, the theory continues to circulate, supported by photographs, surveys, and debates in academic and alternative circles. To its proponents, the weathering of the Sphinx is not just natural decay, but geological testimony to a forgotten chapter of human history, an argument that refuses to be dismissed, even as it remains unproven within mainstream archaeology. Alternative thinkers take this geological puzzle further, weaving it into broader narratives of lost civilizations. They argue that if the Sphinx predates dynastic Egypt, then its builders must have belonged to a sophisticated society that vanished from the historical record. Some link this to legends of a global flood, suggesting that survivors preserved their knowledge by carving enduring monuments. Others see the erosion as evidence that the Sphinx stood through dramatic shifts in climate, bearing silent witness to ages long forgotten. For these researchers, the monument is not just a guardian of Khafra's pyramid, but a relic of humanity's deep past. They suggest that mainstream reluctance to accept water erosion stems from fear of rewriting history. If proven true, the Sphinx would not merely be older, it would force a reconsideration of human development, showing that complex societies thrived far earlier than conventional archaeology allows. These claims remain speculative, but they resonate powerfully with audiences drawn to mystery, sparking documentaries, books, and ongoing debate. The stone scars of the Sphinx thus serve as a canvas upon which both science and imagination project their visions of the past. Balancing the two sides reveals how much the Sphinx embodies uncertainty. On one hand, mainstream experts see erosion as a natural consequence of its environment, fitting neatly into the story of Khafra's Egypt. On the other, alternative voices argue that its scars are evidence of rainfall from a distant epoch, pointing to civilizations lost to time. What unites both camps is recognition that the Sphinx is unlike any other monument, colossal, enigmatic, and worn by forces we still strive to understand. The truth may lie somewhere in between. Perhaps dynastic Egyptians carved, restored, and reshaped an older monument, or perhaps natural erosion has been misunderstood. Either way, the Sphinx continues to resist definitive explanation. Its body, weathered and scarred, invites questions that neither geology nor history has fully answered. As the desert sun warms its surface, each groove and fissure becomes part of a larger riddle, one that refuses to fade with time. The Sphinx remains a mystery carved in stone, a silent reminder that even the hardest rock cannot escape the forces of nature, or the weight of human curiosity. Mainstream archaeology explains the Sphinx within the established framework of dynastic Egypt. In this view, the Old Kingdom represents the earliest flowering of monumental architecture, with no evidence of advanced civilizations predating it in the Nile Valley. Excavations across Egypt reveal a gradual progression, from Neolithic farming communities to complex states led by powerful kings who commanded vast labour forces. Archaeologists argue that this cultural evolution is supported by pottery, tools, burials, and settlements that can be reliably dated. According to this account, the Sphinx is the product of local innovation and continuity, not the inheritance of a forgotten people. The absence of earlier monumental structures in Egypt is taken as proof that no highly advanced society existed before the pharaohs. Mainstream scholars acknowledge Egypt's debt to earlier farming cultures, but insist that the leap to stone architecture was made by Egyptians themselves. To them, the Sphinx is extraordinary, yet not inexplicable. It is the logical result of centuries of development within the Nile Valley, standing as a testament to human ingenuity rather than evidence of a civilization that has vanished without trace. Yet some researchers remain unsatisfied with this explanation. They argue that the Sphinx's scale, mystery, and apparent age suggest a deeper origin. Writers such as Graham Hancock have popularized the idea that an advanced civilization existed before recorded history, only to be wiped out by cataclysm. According to this theory, survivors of that lost world passed on fragments of their knowledge to early cultures, helping ignite the rise of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and other ancient centers. Supporters point to similarities in myths across continents, stories of floods, gods, and bringers of wisdom, as echoes of this forgotten chapter. They also highlight anomalies, precise astronomical alignments, unexplained architectural techniques, and the persistence of traditions that seem older than the civilizations that carried them. In their view, the Sphinx is not simply an Egyptian monument, but a clue left by an earlier world. These ideas are often dismissed by academics as speculative, yet they continue to inspire public fascination. The thought that history might be incomplete, that beneath our written records lies a hidden past, offers a tantalizing sense of mystery, one that the Sphinx embodies perfectly with its silent, inscrutable gaze. Proponents of the lost civilization hypothesis often turn to geology and astronomy to bolster their case. They note that the Sphinx faces directly east, aligned with the rising sun, and speculate about connections to celestial cycles older than dynastic Egypt. Some claim that the monument reflects a sky-ground connection, mirroring constellations as they appeared in remote antiquity. Coupled with water erosion theories, this alignment is taken as evidence that the Sphinx was carved during a prehistoric golden age of knowledge. Others link the monument to myths of Atlantis, Plato's island civilization destroyed by floods. They suggest survivors of that cataclysm migrated to Egypt and encoded their wisdom into stone. From this perspective, the Sphinx is more than a guardian. It is a marker, intentionally designed to carry knowledge through ages of destruction. While mainstream archaeology sees little evidence for these sweeping claims, the persistence of such ideas reveals how powerful the lure of mystery can be. The Sphinx seems to demand explanations that go beyond stone and sand, encouraging us to imagine forgotten worlds and cosmic messages carved into its very form. Balancing these perspectives, the lost civilization hypothesis remains both compelling and contested. On one side, scholars emphasize the continuity of Egyptian culture, pointing to abundant evidence that the Old Kingdom was fully capable of creating the Sphinx. On the other, alternative voices argue that anomalies in geology, mythology, and astronomy hint at a deeper story, a civilization erased from history, leaving behind only fragments. What makes the Sphinx unique is how well it accommodates both views. To scientists, it is an Egyptian masterpiece. To dreamers, it is a relic of a forgotten age. Neither position has fully silenced the other, ensuring that the debate endures. As long as the Sphinx stares eastward toward the rising sun, it will continue to symbolize the duality of human knowledge, what we know and what we long to uncover. Perhaps the true legacy of the Sphinx is not the certainty of its origins, but the mystery it preserves. It is both monument and question, a riddle that challenges us to keep searching. And in that search, we reveal as much about our present desires as we do about the distant past. Mainstream archaeology acknowledges that the Sphinx has long inspired rumors of hidden passages and secret chambers, but no confirmed discoveries have proven such claims. Excavations around the monument during the 20th century revealed repairs, causeways, and smaller structures connected to Khafra's pyramid complex, but not underground vaults. Egyptologists argue that the Sphinx was never designed as a tomb or storage chamber. It was a symbolic guardian carved into natural limestone, not a container of secrets. Surveys have located minor fissures and cavities in the bedrock, yet scholars interpret these as natural geological features, not man-made tunnels. To the scientific community, speculation about vast halls beneath the Sphinx is more legend than fact, rooted in misinterpretations and overactive imagination. They emphasize that Egyptian builders left behind abundant evidence of their practices, including inscriptions and records, and nothing suggests that the Sphinx hid archives or treasures. For mainstream archaeology, the Sphinx's grandeur lies in its visibility, not in hidden spaces below. Its significance was meant to be seen, worshipped, and preserved on the surface, an open monument, not a concealed vault of mysteries. Despite this official stance, alternative researchers have long claimed otherwise. In the 1990s, ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted by independent teams revealed anomalies beneath the Sphinx, including rectangular voids and cavities near the paws. Authors such as John Anthony West and Graham Hancock seized on these findings, suggesting they point to man-made chambers deliberately concealed under the monument. They argue that these could be the remains of a so-called Hall of Records, a legendary archive of ancient wisdom. This concept is often tied to stories from Hermetic texts and later esoteric traditions, which speak of sacred knowledge preserved for future generations. To their supporters, the Sphinx is more than a statue. It is a key to unlocking a lost history. Egypt's government and leading archaeologists, however, have dismissed these claims, insisting that the anomalies are natural fractures in the bedrock. Nonetheless, the tantalizing possibility of hidden chambers continues to fuel speculation. The idea that a secret vault could lie just beyond our reach captures public imagination, keeping the Sphinx at the center of debates about forbidden knowledge. Legends of hidden chambers beneath the Sphinx stretch far back in history. Arab chroniclers of the Middle Ages describe tunnels leading into the monument, while ancient Egyptian texts such as the Coffin texts and Book of the Dead speak of subterranean realms guarded by lions and sphinxes. Some esoteric traditions link the Sphinx to the god Thoth, suggesting that it was a gateway to divine wisdom stored below the earth. Later mystics, including those influenced by the 20th century psychic Edgar Cayce, claim that the Sphinx protects the Hall of Records, a library left by survivors of Atlantis containing maps, histories, and prophecies. Although these accounts lack material evidence, they persist across centuries woven into folklore and mystery traditions. What keeps them alive is the Sphinx's aura of secrecy. Its silent form, eroded by time, seems like the perfect guardian for something precious concealed within the sands. For many, it is easier to believe that such a monument must hide treasures than to accept it as merely symbolic. Myths of hidden chambers therefore continue to surround the Sphinx, even as archaeology provides no proof to confirm them. Until then, the Sphinx remains both guardian and question, holding its secrets, real or imagined, under layers of stone and sand. The search for what lies beneath tells us as much about our desire for forbidden knowledge as it does about the monument itself. In the daylight of the Giza Plateau, the Sphinx endures, a reminder that mysteries thrive where evidence is scarce, and where curiosity never rests. Balancing fact and legend, the question of hidden chambers remains unresolved. On one hand, geological surveys and excavations have not revealed definitive evidence of man-made vaults beneath the Sphinx. On the other, anomalies in the bedrock and centuries of myth refuse to let the idea die. Whether natural fissures or concealed archives, the possibility itself has become part of the monument's story. What matters is not only what lies beneath, but what we imagine to be there. The Sphinx functions as a riddle carved in stone, and the belief in hidden chambers keeps that riddle alive. If no secret halls exist, the mystery endures in the myths. If one day a discovery is made, history itself will be rewritten. Mainstream Egyptology sees the Sphinx as firmly rooted in pharaonic tradition. Ancient inscriptions, though rare, describe the Sphinx as a divine guardian associated with the sun god, Ra-Horakhti, Ra of the horizon. This interpretation places the monument within Egypt's long tradition of solar worship, where the rising and setting sun symbolized life, death, and rebirth. The dream stele of Thutmose IV, discovered between the Sphinx's paws, provides direct testimony from the New Kingdom. It recounts how the young prince fell asleep in the shadow of the half-buried monument and dreamed the Sphinx spoke to him, promising kingship if he cleared away the sands. This stele shows that, even 1,000 years after its construction, the Sphinx was revered as more than stone. It was seen as a living divine presence. For mainstream scholars, such texts demonstrate that Egyptians themselves saw the Sphinx not as a mystery, but as a sacred guardian, tied to their religious and political life. Its myths were not secrets to them, but affirmations of their cosmic worldview. Beyond official inscriptions, the Sphinx appears in Egyptian myth and later folklore as a being of power and enigma. Some traditions describe it as a threshold guardian between worlds, echoing its placement at the edge of the desert, guarding the necropolis. In later Greek accounts, the Sphinx became associated with riddles, famously asking travellers its question and devouring those who failed to answer. Though this Greek version differs from the Egyptian, it reflects how the image of the Sphinx travelled across cultures, taking on new meanings while retaining its aura of mystery. Arab chroniclers, writing in the medieval period, described the monument with awe, often linking it to hidden treasures or magical powers. For them, the Sphinx was more than stone. It was a remnant of a time when humans communed with forces greater than themselves. These layers of myth reveal the monument's adaptability, how each culture projected onto it their own fears, hopes, and mysteries. From solar deity to riddling monster, from guardian of tombs to keeper of secrets, the Sphinx became a canvas upon which civilizations painted their imaginations. Some esoteric traditions connect the Sphinx to the Egyptian god Thoth, deity of wisdom, writing, and hidden knowledge. In this view, the monument is not only a guardian of the necropolis, but also a symbolic gateway to divine truth. Mystical texts from the Greco-Roman period and later Hermetic writings portray the Sphinx as part of a cosmic mystery school, where initiates sought enlightenment through trials and secrets preserved in stone. Centuries later, mystics and occultists wove the Sphinx into their teachings, seeing it as a symbol of inner riddles and the human quest for higher understanding. Edgar Cayce, the 20th century sleeping prophet, claimed that beneath the Sphinx lies the Hall of Records, a library left by survivors of Atlantis. According to Cayce, this hidden chamber holds prophecies and histories that will one day reveal humanity's forgotten past. Though mainstream archaeology rejects such claims, the persistence of these esoteric interpretations shows how the Sphinx has transcended its physical form. It is not only a monument, but also a symbol of mystery, transformation, and hidden wisdom waiting to be uncovered. Balancing myth and evidence, the Sphinx stands at the crossroads of history and imagination. To Egyptians of the Old Kingdom, it was a solar guardian. To Thutmose IV, it was a living voice promising destiny. To Greeks, it was a monster of riddles. To Arab storytellers, a vessel of hidden power. To modern mystics, a gateway to forbidden knowledge. Each layer adds depth to the monument, shaping how we see it today. Mainstream scholars argue that these myths reflect cultural reinterpretations rather than hidden truths. Yet the endurance of these stories suggests something more. The Sphinx invites myth because it refuses explanation. Its silent gaze seems to demand meaning, and across time, humanity has supplied answers in the form of legends. Whether these stories conceal truths or merely reflect human imagination remains uncertain. What is certain is that the Sphinx thrives in this tension, where fact and folklore blur. In the bright daylight of the Giza Plateau, it is not only a monument of stone, but also a monument of stories, living myths carved into memory, whispering that history may be stranger than we think. Mainstream archaeology has studied the Sphinx extensively throughout the modern era. In the early 20th century, major excavations cleared centuries of accumulated sand from around the monument, exposing its full body once more. Egyptologists documented the erosion, restoration efforts, and architectural features linking the Sphinx to Khafra's pyramid complex. Official reports emphasized that no hidden tunnels or chambers were found, only natural fissures and structural repairs. In the 1980s and 1990s, further surveys used ground-penetrating technology to study the bedrock. The findings were presented as geological rather than archaeological, with Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities reaffirming that the Sphinx belonged firmly to the Old Kingdom. To mainstream scholars, these excavations demonstrated the power of careful science to separate fact from legend. Their goal was not to silence speculation, but to preserve the Sphinx as a cultural treasure, protected from sensational claims. From this perspective, The monument's mysteries lie in its symbolism and endurance, not in conspiracies of concealment. Despite these efforts, accusations of secrecy have shadowed modern excavations. Alternative researchers claim that Egyptian authorities, sometimes in partnership with foreign institutions, have deliberately restricted access to sensitive areas. They argue that radar anomalies and unusual structures reported near the Sphinx were downplayed or dismissed without thorough exploration. Some suggest that the government fears destabilizing Egypt's national narrative if discoveries contradict the accepted timeline of civilization. Others believe political and economic concerns drive caution, with tourism revenue depending on Egypt's control of its heritage. These suspicions intensified in the 1990s when independent surveys reported voids beneath the monument, but were denied permission to excavate further. To critics, this looked like a cover-up, feeding suspicions that forbidden knowledge remains buried under the Sphinx. Though mainstream scholars reject such claims, the lack of transparency has kept alternative theories alive, ensuring that every unexplored cavity is viewed as a potential secret vault. International intrigue has added fuel to these suspicions. Stories circulate of foreign governments and private foundations pressuring Egypt to allow deeper investigations. Popular writers claim that secret digs have taken place at night or under restricted access, with their results hidden from the public. Though no verifiable evidence supports these rumours, they persist in popular culture. Documentaries and books highlight the tension between Egyptologists and alternative researchers, portraying the Sphinx as a battleground between orthodoxy and speculation. Some even allege that global institutions fear revealing discoveries that could rewrite human history, records of advanced civilizations, or even extraterrestrial contact. While mainstream historians dismiss these stories as imaginative, their popularity underscores how secrecy, real or perceived, can amplify mystery. The Sphinx, already enigmatic, becomes the centerpiece of a narrative where archaeology collides with conspiracy. An absence of evidence is interpreted as evidence of concealment. Balancing science and suspicion, the debate over modern excavations reveals as much about human psychology as it does about the Sphinx itself. Archaeologists stress documentation, peer review, and preservation, while alternative voices emphasize intuition, anomalies, and withheld access. Both sides, in different ways, contribute to the monument's enduring mystique. The reality may be more mundane than conspiracies suggest: bureaucracy, politics, and the challenges of preserving fragile monuments often slow or halt exploration. Yet for many, this very lack of openness fuels belief in hidden truths. The Sphinx thus remains a symbol not only of ancient riddles but of modern secrecy. In the bright daylight of Giza, it is photographed and studied, yet it still seems to withhold answers. Perhaps the true cover-up lies not in buried chambers, but in our inability to accept uncertainty. The Sphinx resists final explanation, and in that resistance it continues to embody the tension between knowledge and mystery, past and present. Mainstream scholars argue that while the Sphinx is extraordinary, it can be explained through the known capabilities of ancient Egyptians. Archaeology demonstrates that the Old Kingdom possessed both the organization and the craftsmanship to create massive monuments. The pyramids, temples, and causeways surrounding the Sphinx provide context, showing that this was part of a unified religious and political program. Egyptologists emphasize that no credible evidence links the Sphinx to extraterrestrial visitors or vanished super-civilizations. They see such claims as distractions that undermine appreciation for the Egyptians' genuine achievements. For them, the Sphinx is a cultural and artistic triumph of human imagination, not a mystery demanding otherworldly solutions. By studying tool marks, quarrying techniques, and architectural patterns, they argue that human ingenuity fully accounts for the monument. From this perspective, the real wonder is not that aliens or Atlanteans carved the Sphinx, but that ancient Egyptians, without modern machines, could design and execute a project of such scale. The Sphinx thus stands as a testament to human creativity and determination, rather than a puzzle requiring cosmic intervention. Alternative theories, however, propose far more sensational origins. Some suggest that the Sphinx was influenced, or even constructed, by beings from beyond Earth. Advocates of the ancient astronaut hypothesis argue that the monument's scale and enduring mystery point to extraterrestrial guidance. They highlight the precision of the Sphinx's alignment and its symbolic fusion of human and animal traits as evidence of advanced knowledge, possibly gifted by visitors from the stars. In this narrative, the Sphinx is not only a guardian of Egypt's necropolis, but also a marker left by cosmic teachers who guided early humanity. Proponents often connect the monument to similar myths worldwide: sky gods in Mesopotamia, feathered serpents in Mesoamerica, or star beings in Africa, claiming that all share a common extraterrestrial origin. Though mainstream archaeology rejects these links, they persist in popular culture, where the Sphinx becomes part of a larger story of humanity's supposed encounters with beings beyond our world. Another enduring idea ties the Sphinx to Atlantis, the legendary civilization described by Plato. According to this theory, survivors of Atlantis' destruction migrated to Egypt and passed down their knowledge, leaving the Sphinx as a memorial to their lost homeland. Writers like Ignatius Donnelly in the 19th century and later Graham Hancock in the 20th century have promoted versions of this view, suggesting that the Sphinx and pyramids are part of a global network of monuments built to preserve ancient wisdom. Supporters note similarities between flood myths across cultures and interpret them as echoes of a great cataclysm. They argue that the Sphinx's possible water erosion supports the idea of a much older origin, linking it to an Atlantean golden age. In this perspective, the monument is not just Egyptian, it is universal, a stone record left for future humanity to rediscover. Mainstream scholars see these claims as myth-making rather than evidence, but their popularity underscores how deeply people wish to believe in a forgotten age of greatness. The Sphinx, massive and enigmatic, is an ideal candidate for such projections. Balancing these ideas, the Sphinx continues to serve as a screen onto which humanity projects its grandest myths. Archaeologists stand firm that it is the work of Egyptians, created with human tools and human vision. Yet alternative theories, whether extraterrestrial or Atlantean, keep the Sphinx alive in the imagination, transforming it into more than stone. For some, it is proof that we are not alone in the universe. For others, it is evidence that our past is deeper and more complex than history books allow. The tension between these views ensures the monument's lasting mystery. Even without proof, the very possibility of cosmic intervention or lost civilizations captivates millions, giving the Sphinx an aura that pure science cannot entirely erase. In the bright daylight of Giza, it is both monument and myth, guardian and enigma, human achievement and canvas for our cosmic dreams. The truth may remain uncertain, but the fascination endures, and perhaps that is why the Sphinx was built, to embody not only power but also mystery, keeping humanity forever curious about its place in the universe. From a mainstream perspective, archaeologists and Egyptologists maintain that nothing is being deliberately hidden about the Sphinx. They argue that research is carefully documented, peer-reviewed, and accessible through academic publications. For them, the monument is a heritage site that demands strict protection, not reckless excavation. The Sphinx, carved into fragile limestone, could be damaged by attempts to dig beneath it in search of myths. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities has long emphasized preservation, warning that speculation about hidden vaults risks overshadowing the real achievements of ancient Egyptians. Scholars assert that accusations of secrecy are often fueled by misunderstandings of scientific caution. Protecting the Sphinx means limiting invasive studies, not concealing discoveries. To the academic world, what lies beneath the monument is not a hall of records or alien archive, but vulnerable stone and sediment. They argue that what outsiders call forbidden knowledge is in reality knowledge preserved openly in temples, inscriptions, and papyrus scrolls, materials already studied for generations. From this view, the claim of concealment is unnecessary, because the true story of the Sphinx is already visible, a monument of kingship, faith, and survival in the ancient desert. Yet for many, the lack of transparency fuels suspicion. Alternative researchers argue that governments, academic institutions, and even international organizations have reasons to suppress discoveries that might overturn established history. They point to restrictions on excavations, denied permits, and limited publication of certain survey data as evidence of a hidden agenda. Some suggest that revealing older origins for the Sphinx, or uncovering chambers filled with unknown texts, would disrupt the narrative of civilization's rise from simple beginnings. Others claim that powerful nations guard ancient sites as part of a broader strategy, controlling not just land but knowledge itself. In this view, the Sphinx is not only a monument but also a vault of suppressed truth, locked away by authorities who fear its implications. While no conclusive proof supports these claims, the persistence of secrecy narratives keeps them alive. The very silence of institutions, whether caused by caution or bureaucracy, is interpreted as evidence of concealment. To believers, the absence of answers is itself a clue that something extraordinary remains hidden beneath the Sphinx's massive paws. Esoteric traditions expand these suspicions into cosmic proportions. Followers of Edgar Case's prophecies insist that a hall of records lies beneath the Sphinx, containing records of Atlantis and humanity's forgotten prehistory. They believe that governments and scholars are aware of this, but intentionally keep it from public view. In popular media, stories abound of secret chambers filled with scrolls, crystalline devices, or artifacts of lost technologies. Some even argue that extraterrestrial evidence, proof of ancient contact with advanced beings, might lie sealed underground. From this perspective, the Sphinx is not simply an Egyptian monument, but a doorway to revelations capable of rewriting human destiny. Mainstream science rejects these claims, emphasizing the lack of physical evidence. Yet the power of these narratives is undeniable. They blend myth, mystery, and suspicion into a story larger than life. In these tales, the Sphinx is a silent conspirator, hiding truths too dangerous or too transformative for humanity to confront. Whether or not such records exist, the belief in them has become part of the monument's cultural identity, shaping how millions perceive its silent form. Balancing fact and suspicion, the question of what is hidden beneath the Sphinx may reveal more about us than about the monument itself. Scholars see preservation, seekers see secrecy. Governments enforce protection, critics interpret obstruction. Myths of hidden archives and Atlantean records endure because they answer a longing. The desire to believe that history is deeper, stranger, and more wondrous than textbooks allow. In truth, the sands of Giza conceal both knowledge and ignorance. We may never know whether chambers lie beneath the Sphinx, or whether their stories are pure imagination. But the mystery itself has value. It compels curiosity, fuels exploration, and inspires generations to look beyond the obvious. In the bright desert sun, the Sphinx stands as both guardian and riddle, whispering that knowledge is always layered, some on the surface, some beneath, and some forever out of reach. Perhaps what is hidden is not forbidden truth, but the very mystery that keeps humanity searching. The Sphinx, timeless and enigmatic, ensures that our quest for understanding never truly ends. Mainstream archaeology closes the story of the Sphinx by reaffirming its place in human achievement. To Egyptologists, it is not an unsolvable riddle, but a monument that testifies to the skill, organization, and belief of the Old Kingdom. Its alignment with Khafra's pyramid complex, its role as a solar guardian, and its centuries of restoration reveal that Egyptians themselves saw it as a sacred presence, not a puzzle. Scholars argue that myths of aliens, Atlanteans, or hidden records may be fascinating, but they distract from the very real wonder of the Sphinx, that humans, without iron tools or machines, carved a colossus that has endured for more than 4,000 years. From this perspective, the Sphinx needs no forbidden knowledge to make it extraordinary. Its mystery lies not in what is buried beneath it, but in the endurance of a civilization that shaped stone into a timeless symbol. In bright daylight, standing on the Giza plateau, the Sphinx is proof that human imagination and effort can create wonders that defy time itself. Still, alternative voices argue that the Sphinx remains more than a masterpiece of Egypt. For them, it is the key to a forgotten chapter of human history, whether survivors of Atlantis, messengers from the stars, or an ancient civilization lost to the sands of time. They point to unexplained erosion, underground anomalies, and myths of hidden archives as evidence that something is missing from the official story. To these seekers, the monument is not merely symbolic, it is literal proof of knowledge buried or suppressed. Each unanswered question fuels their belief that the Sphinx holds secrets capable of reshaping our understanding of the past. The fact that no definitive discoveries have been made only strengthens the allure. In their eyes, silence itself is a clue, and absence of evidence becomes evidence of concealment. Whether plausible or not, these interpretations ensure that the Sphinx is more than archaeology. It is a living mystery. The Sphinx's greatest power may be that it embodies both certainty and doubt. For scientists, it is a product of human culture, fully explainable through history and geology. For dreamers, it is a gateway to hidden truths, waiting for the day when its secrets will be revealed. This dual nature keeps the Sphinx relevant across ages and cultures. Ancient Egyptians saw it as divine. Greeks reimagined it as a riddle. Arabs saw it as magical, and modern seekers view it as a vault of forbidden knowledge. Each culture has added a layer, and together they form a palimpsest of meaning that no single interpretation can erase. Whether guardian, riddle, or cosmic marker, the Sphinx invites us to participate in its story. Its silence is not emptiness but invitation, encouraging humanity to keep questioning, keep imagining, and keep searching. In the end, the forbidden knowledge of the Sphinx may not be buried beneath its paws, but within our own need for mystery. It teaches us that history is never fully settled, that monuments are more than stone, and that human imagination is as enduring as limestone itself. What they hide from us may be less about government secrets or lost civilizations, and more about the limits of certainty. The Sphinx thrives because it is unfinished in meaning, an eternal question carved into desert bedrock. In the warm light of Giza, its gazers watched empires rise and fall, myths take root, and generations come seeking answers. It has given none, and perhaps that is its greatest gift. By refusing to yield its full story, the Sphinx ensures that humanity will never stop seeking, never stop wondering. Whether we see it as proof of Egyptian genius, or a gateway to lost worlds, the mystery endures, and in that endurance the Sphinx fulfills its purpose, to guard not only a necropolis, but the eternal flame of curiosity itself.